Israeli families are protesting in front of the U.S. consulate in Tel Aviv. They're calling for an end to the war in Gaza and the return of all the remaining captives. Netanyahu is under increasing pressure to secure a ceasefire deal with Hamas. Israeli authorities say they believe about 20 captives are still being held alive in the Gaza Strip. Hamdah Salhut joins us now from Amman, Jordan. She's there because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting in Israel and the occupied West Bank. So pressure from the families of captives, but also pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu from his governing coalition. Where does he stand today on this ceasefire deal after his defiant speech at the United Nations on Friday?
Well, in the face of mounting domestic pressure, the Israeli prime minister still hasn't really signaled where Israel stands in the course of a ceasefire deal and what they are willing to agree to and concede on. It will be a huge, devastating loss for family members of hostages and the greater Israeli public if Netanyahu returns to Israel empty-handed, because this is his fourth time in Washington, and each time they were expecting him to come back with something tangible, which never came to fruition. So while Netanyahu is up against the Israeli public, he's also up against his right-wing government, who is opposed to a deal and wants different things. They want to keep moving forward with the war effort, expanding military operations. They want annexation of the occupied West Bank, and they also want to expel the Palestinian population from the Gaza Strip and build illegal settlements there. So if Netanyahu is walking this tightrope with his biggest ally, U.S. President Donald Trump, he's also walking a very fine line with his government that's at risk of collapsing if there's a deal and they're not in favor of it.
Right. And the question now is whether Netanyahu will be listening to the Americans, or will he once again take his political considerations into account?
I think it's important to consider U.S. President Donald Trump's role in all of this, because while he is Netanyahu's biggest ally, President Trump also doesn't want to be embarrassed on the international stage by Netanyahu by signaling that they're close to a deal, that these talks are happening, that we are in the 11th hour, and for Netanyahu to go back to Israel and say, well, we're actually not interested, because there was a framework already on the table presented by the Americans nearly 2 months ago that Hamas agreed to, and the Israelis had never responded, instead moved forward with their operation in Gaza City to occupy and take over northern Gaza. So while all of this is ongoing, you have in the backdrop the right-wing government who says that they only want to escalate things. They have expansionist visions for a greater Israel. They want to annex the occupied West Bank, something that President Trump himself has said that this is a red line. So it'll be interesting to see how the relationship between the two leaders will go on from here if the Israelis say no to this deal.
Hamdah, thank you for now. Hamdah Salhut in Amman, Jordan, for us.
Don't miss out to get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.